Hey everybody, so today I'm going to be giving you my review of Dark Phoenix. And as you heard from my Toy Story 4 review, the fact that I was recording this first. I was aware of the fact that I was going to post out Toy Story 4 because I was having more difficulties with with this review than Toy Story 4, but I was going to get it made. So, here we are. So, a little bit of background on this. Dark Phoenix was a movie that it's the final film by 20th Century Fox involving the X-Men before they joined the MCU. And it's been like that for years because when Marvel ended up going bankrupt in the mid to late 90s, they sold off some of the film rights to some of the most famous characters. The Fantastic Four and X-Men went to Fox, while Sony ended up picking up the rights to Spider-Man. And it was the first X-Men movie that came out all the way back in 2000 that ended up, revitalizing, comic book movies as something cool. It got the ball rolling for serious comic book films to become huge moneymakers. And it's a franchise that has been mostly consistent for the past couple of years. True, there are some ones that are more okay than others, like X-Men The Last Stand, and then there are just some downright terrible ones, like X-Men Origins Wolverine, but for the most part, it has been consistent. And Dark Phoenix is a film that has had troubled production for a while. You see, this is the feature film debut of Simon Kinberg. Now, Simon Kinberg has been working on the X-Men for a long while now. He was a co-writer on The Last Stand. He wrote Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, and he's making his directorial debut with this film. However, this movie has had a lot of trouble in production because numerous test screenings were very poor, and the entire third act of the film was reshot. Because the reason why was because it was too similar to Captain America Civil War and Captain Marvel. I was excited to see this for a little bit, but then my excitement waned when I saw it debuted with a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. According to that means that is worse than Last Stand, Apocalypse, and X-Men Origins Wolverine. That is terrible. And not only that, but I had a hard time trying to find a screening near me in order to be able to see it because so many screenings were being pulled because this film became a huge box office flop. This had a budget of $200 million, and so far it only made $238, with it needed an estimated $500 million in order to break even. And it's bad when it only makes $33 million on its opening weekend here in the US and Canada. And Secret Life of Pets 2 made more money than this. So yeah. Let's just say the fact that expectations were really low. But I gotta say, as an X-Men film, it's not bad. It's just really okay. What's the premise? It's the Dark Phoenix saga. The X-Men go into space. Jean Grey ends up coming into contact with the Phoenix Force. She absorbs it into herself, and she slowly becomes corrupted by the power and becomes the Dark Phoenix. Now, the reason why they wanted to do this movie again was because they wanted to be able to get a second stab at the story because, as you know, X-Men Last Stand tried to do its own thing involving the Phoenix Saga, but they also ended up merging in the Gifted storyline, in which there was a mutant cure. It didn't really work out all that well. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, Last Stand is probably a better movie than this. But, yeah, I don't still think Dark Phoenix is a bad film. First, let's talk about the positives, because I really do not want to dwindle on the bad. First of all, the actors. They do really good jobs. There's 4 in particular I want to single out. James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Sophie Turner, and Ty Sheridan. In case you're wondering, James McAvoy portrayed Professor X, Michael Fassbender portrayed Magneto, Sophie Turner played Jean Grey, and Ty Sheridan played Cyclops. I think that they all did really, really good jobs with the roles that they were given. It's just the fact that I didn't think the dialogue was really well written. But given the material that they have, the actors do a good job. Sorry. But those 4 actors in particular, I think, did a really good job with the material. Hans Zimmer's score, well, I will admit, it is like most other Hans Zimmer scores. It's not terrible. It's actually really not all that bad. And the action sequences are really cool. Like, the highlight has definitely got to be the ending fight sequence involving a train in which the X-Men all get to use their powers, which is really cool. First, and another thing, too, is that the opening space battle was really cool, in which they're, going up in a spaceship and, they're trying to repair the damage and save the astronauts. That was really cool. And now we talk about the negative stuff. This feels like it was making a lot of similar problems that The Last Stand did. Because in The Last Stand, it was explained that when Magneto and Xavier were younger, they ended up going to Jean Grey, ended up setting up these psychic barriers in her after her parents' deaths. And when the Phoenix Force was unleashed, those barriers were gone, and she ended up going nuts. The exact same thing happened in this film. When Jean is very young, her parents are killed in a car crash. Xavier ends up instilling these mental blocks in her mind to keep her from the trauma. But when she absorbs the Phoenix Force, the memories just come flooding back and she goes into a rage. But I will admit the fact that they at least tried to incorporate the cosmic elements of the Dark Phoenix saga. But this leads to my number one biggest complaint I have with this film. The Dark Phoenix saga is not a film that you can just do in one story that can do in one film. You need multiple movies setting up the build-up for the Phoenix. You can't just have it a one-done film and that's it. No, you need more to the story because there is more to the story than just, oh, Jean got all these powers and all the other stuff. Plus, I really do think the fact that it should have gone for an R rating and should have involved, I'm not saying the fact there needs to be more blood, but I think the fact that there needed to show more the capabilities of what Jean could do and how big a threat she was, because back in the comics and in the animated TV show, from the 90s for children, she went into space after she became Dark Phoenix, absorbed the entire power of a sun, it exploded, and killed billions of life forms that were near said star. We really need to see Jean do more of that stuff in order to show how big a threat she is. And also, the Dubai, or whatever they're supposed to be called, I actually think they're probably some of the worst comic book villains of all time. For real. And the lead one is played by Jessica Chastain. And I also find this really ironic, the fact that Sophie Turner, she's naturally blonde, but she plays a redhead. Jessica Chastain is naturally a redhead, but in this movie she plays a blonde. I see the irony here, but whatever. And the thing is, another really big problem I have is that they never used the comic book accurate costumes. They finally set up comic accurate costumes at the end of Apocalypse, but with this, they just go with the Grant Morrison era new X-Men suits. These literally look like cheap cosplay that you could literally get at any comic book convention. And yeah, I will admit the fact that it's not as bad as the critics say. It's not really all that good either. It's just in the middle, okay. So, final thoughts on Dark Phoenix. It's just an okay X-Men film. But for something that's supposed to be the last film ever in the franchise before, they go over to the MCU. I mean, New Mutants is going to be coming out at some point, but I highly doubt it. I'm going to give Dark Phoenix a 6. So, tune in next time where I review a superhero movie that a lot of people are actually thinking is going to be good, that people have been looking forward to. Spider-Man: Far From Home. Stay tuned for that, and as always, stay gold.